A major whistleblower named Dr. Gal Luft now reveals himself, exposing the Biden crime family, and he releases a video message under threat of DOJ prosecution. The same DOJ that we've talked about here. It is literally covering up for Joe Biden and the Biden crime family in collusion with the IRS and the FBI to keep them protected and out of touch of any political consequences while they instead prosecute their political opponents named Trump. We are going to go through this full statement from Dr. Gal Luft, but before we dig into it, I want to share with you a little bit of background because he goes fast and he talks about a lot of different things. First, he was in fact arrested. Now, he posted this tweet back on February 18, 2023. He says, "I've been arrested in Cyprus on a politically motivated extradition request by the United States." He's a researcher. He's somebody that's involved in global security conversations, but the U.S., the reason why he's posting this video from exile essentially is because the United States is prosecuting him, claiming that he's an arms dealer. He said it'd be funny if it weren't tragic. I've never been an arms dealer. DOJ is trying to bury me to protect Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden. Back in February, he says, "Shall I name names?" Well, he did. We've got a bunch of names that he drops for us. We'll review them briefly. But first, let's take a look at his bio. This is over from the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security. They tell us this guy, Dr. Gal Luft, is a co-director for this agency. It's a Washington-based think tank. It's focused on energy security and economic trends. We're going to hear him talk about this. Writing papers, exchanging money with people, ghostwriting, thinking and writing about these types of topics. He is a senior advisor to the United States Energy Security Council, which is a cabinet-level extra-governmental advisory committee. He specializes in geopolitics, geoeconomics, energy security, Middle East, and U.S.-China relations. So he sounds like somebody who's got a lot of the qualifications that Hunter Biden pretends to have. Newsweek called him a tireless and independent advocate of energy security. Esquire included him in the list of the best and brightest. He's published numerous studies, co-author of all of these different pieces. Boom, 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 boom. Frequently in the media and advises various think tanks and so on. Went to Johns Hopkins, and you can see this is where he resides. We also know a little bit more about him. At some point, he testified in front of Congress. This is part of the testimony. This was back, I think, in 2004, some time ago, but he did speak in front of them, and it was on a panel about China's future energy development and their acquisition strategies. So he was there as the executive director for the analysis of global security. He's also going to mention this person, somebody named Patrick Ho. Patrick Ho is a person who was convicted of crimes, went to trial, goes by the name Chi Ping Patrick Ho. Different counts: conspiracy to violate the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, domestic concerns, being involved in the Chad scheme and the Uganda scheme and these different countries' schemes. This is Patrick Ho. This is not Dr. Gal Luft, but he's going to mention Patrick Ho. And then he's going to drop a bunch of names. We'll come back and we'll check through some of those names, which I started to note down because he goes fast. But an amazing report, an absolute must watch and follow up, because this is going to open up the box upon which Congress can start inspecting. They will be able to get all of these names, issue their subpoenas, their requests for depositions, and go investigate this. And that's courtesy of Dr. Gal Luft, a brave whistleblower who is now speaking out.
Good day. My name is Dr. Gal Luft. For the past 20 years, I have been the co-director of the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, a Washington-based think tank focused on energy security. For the past 15 years, I've been a resident of Israel. And for 4 years, I was senior advisor to the China energy company CEFC, at the same time of its dealings with the Biden family.
CEFC was an energy conglomerate, and we actually saw the bank records that were payments from that entity through different, LLCs and shell corps.
Under normal circumstances, I would be testifying before Congress about my experience with CEFC. Sadly, due to circumstances I shall describe here in this video, I am forced to tell you this story via video. My ordeal goes back to a fatal decision I made in March of 2019 to share with the US government my knowledge about the Biden family's relations with CEFC. As I said, it was in March of 2019 in a 2-day session at the US Embassy in Brussels. I insisted that the meeting take place in March because at the time there were rumors that Joe Biden was planning to run for president. I saw it as my civic duty to alert the government beforehand and give it enough time to probe the issue. I want to be clear. I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China.
And only this time it's real. The Russian collusion scandal was a fake hoax perpetrated by the Democrats. This is actual criminality. Now, there was some minor Russian paying for ads and minor things, but it wasn't consequential. This is a whole different ballgame. This is documented and organized criminality, not by the Russians who are trying to interfere in an election, not with the help of Trump's campaign, but by themselves. This is an active conspiracy with a vice president running for the 2020 election back in 2019.
Because of the DOJ's cover-up, this is exactly what happened. The DOJ sent to Brussels a delegation of 6 people, 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York by the names of Daniel Reichenthal and Catherine Ghosh.
Names!
And 4 FBI agents. One of them was Special Agent Joshua Wilson from the Baltimore Field Office, which also happens to cover the state of Delaware.
Names, FBI, DOJ.
Now you want to ask yourself, why did the government dispatch to Europe so many people? Why 6?
To cover it up.
2? The answer is that they knew very well that I'm a credible witness and that I have insider knowledge about the group and the individuals that enriched the Biden family. Over an intensive 2-day meeting, I shared my information about the Biden family's financial transactions with CFC, including specific dollar figures. I also provided the name of Rob Walker, who later became known as Hunter Biden's bagman. Yet, as we now know today from the whistleblower testimony, Gary Shapley, it took the DOJ a whole 21 months to probe the issue and to actually talk to Walker. But perhaps the most alarming information I revealed was of a mole within the DOJ who shared classified information with Hunter Biden and his Chinese partners. I told the DOJ that Hunter was closely associated with a very senior retired FBI official who had distinct physical characteristics. He had one eye. One of the FBI agents at the time even told me, that would be very easy for us to find. There aren't that many one-eyed people in the Bureau. The information I provided the FBI in March of 2019 was fully corroborated 9 months later when the famous laptop belonging to Hunter Biden, which contained all the emails and receipts,
all the records corroborated,
was handed to the FBI. And guess who seized the laptop from the computer repair shop? It was Special Agent Joshua Wilson, who was with me in Brussels earlier.
Oh, man. You know that he meets with these U.S. attorneys and sits with this guy, Joshua Wilson, tells him everything. Documents, Hunter's corrupt, James is corrupt, Biden's corrupt, CEFC, everything's transferring from the Chinese over to this shell company, and it goes right into the bank accounts, and here's all the things you need. And they say, it's a very interesting story. We're going to have to investigate that, and thanks for your time. Guess what? 9 months later, crackhead Hunter drops his laptop off. That gets turned over. The FBI picks it up. It matches everything he said, and we know the FBI knows about it because the guy who got the laptop is the same guy he met with to give the original information. So there is just no excuse at all. A whistle was blown. They corroborated it with Hunter's own laptop, and they still covered it up because that's why they were there. They weren't there to investigate anything. They were there to protect the Biden crime family.
In other words, the FBI knew about the Biden CFC deals before they got hold of the laptop, way before. They had enough time to investigate the issue, but they didn't.
Or they did.
After Brussels,
and they did
I
nothing
never heard
with
back
it.
from the DOJ. But instead of showing appreciation for my whistleblowing, I became public enemy number 1.
Of course.
Over the past 4 years that followed, me, my family, my friends, my associates, we were all harassed, intimidated, and finally, I was prosecuted.
Sick.
Despite all that, on the eve of the 2020 elections, I sent my lawyer to Washington to meet with then acting Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Richard Donoghue, to ensure he was informed about the information I had given his department in Brussels 19 months earlier.
Going up the chain.
And Also, to warn him that there may still be a mole within the DOJ. Mr. Donahue confirmed to my lawyer that he was aware of my claims, but now we learn from the IRS whistleblower that it was Rich Donahue himself who suspended the investigation a few weeks earlier on September 4th, 2020.
Because the election's too soon.
On the grounds that it was, quote, too close to the elections. Finally, in February this year, I was arrested in Cyprus on an extradition request from the Southern District of New York, the very same office that met with me in Brussels. The 7-count indictment said I violated the Arms Export Control Act.
Right.
And if I convicted, I would face up to 100 years in prison. While I was detained in Cyprus, I was portrayed in the international media as an arms dealer, even though I never traded a bullet in my entire life. In fact, nowhere in my indictment the DOJ claimed or presented evidence that I bought, sold, shipped, or financed any weapons. I was also charged with acting as an unregistered agent of CFC, which is a FARA violation. The DOJ says that I caused the payment of $6,000 a month to former CIA Director James Woolsey in order to put his name on an article I had ghostwritten for the China Daily newspaper.
So he says that the DOJ is alleging that he's paying some former CIA spook $6,000 a month to put his name on an article that I had ghost written. So that doesn't make any sense, right? He is spending money to write an article and then put somebody else's name on it, is the allegation. It sort of feels backwards to me.
Nowhere in the indictment, the DOJ mentioned the well-known fact that Mr. Woolsey had been an advisor to my think tank since 2002, and that there was nothing in the article that represented Chinese interest. To the contrary. The notion that I, Gal Luft, spoon-fed a CIA director with policy proposals on China, treating him like a useful idiot, is not only an insult to the intelligence community, it is an insult to the intelligence of every American. The U.S. government.
So he's saying that the DOJ is paying him to promote fake stories. He's writing the story, and then he's using cover of a former CIA director to push his narratives under an official name. I see.
Claims that I acted on behalf of CFC, and therefore I'm a foreign agent. But let me tell you a little secret. The same CFC that the US government claims was associated with the Chinese intelligence and, quote, an international criminal organization, was a 501c3 charitable organization registered in the state of Virginia and approved by the IRS. The same organization was also a major donor to the Clinton Foundation and Columbia University. Needless to say that none of their executives were charged for any wrongdoing.
No, of course not. They're all protected.
If CFC was indeed a foreign entity tied so closely to the PRC, why was it allowed to operate freely as a public charity? Why did the government expose taxpayers to the risk of funding an entity it knew at the time was so compromised? Why did they not warn anybody? Isn't the role of government to protect its people?
Not anymore.
I'm also being charged for making
themselves.
a false statement in Brussels. But why was I in Brussels to begin with? Was I there to eat Belgian waffles? The
Hopefully you
DOJ
had
charged me for making a statement in a voluntary meeting that would have never come to bear if not for my good citizenship.
So they're basically entrapping him. They're upset that he brought them to a meeting. They're saying, you gave false information, you lied to us about exposing the Biden crime family. We're going to charge you with a crime for that.
So let me propose an idea.
These people are sick.
Why won't the DOJ make my indictment public?
I'd love to see it. I looked for it.
Make my day. Put it on your website.
I'd love do it.
So that every American can see the nature of the allegations against me.
Let's see it.
The quality of the evidence. And the length the government is willing to go to weaponize the justice system to punish whistleblowers like me.
I tried to find his indictment, but he has not been arrested yet. So it's still sealed. So they will not unseal it until they get him in custody so that we can actually go through it. I'd love to see it. If he's such a monstrous criminal, he's now out there. We know where he is. He's in Israel is what he said. And so unseal it. He's giving you a demand. Why don't you publish it so that we can all read it and verify it for ourselves?
I have another idea. Why won't the FBI submit to Congress the minutes from the Brussels meeting?
Oh.
Let everybody see what happened in Brussels. Why not? Are you trying to protect anything? Are you trying to protect anybody?
Those FD 1023s.
I also hope that the DOJ can explain why they targeted me in Cyprus and not in my home country of Israel, where I reside most of the time. After all, the US shares a bilateral extradition treaty with Israel. So if any of my crimes are real and serious, and this is not just political prosecution, why did the US need to sneak up on me during a short visit to Cyprus? Do they not trust the Israeli judicial system to judge this issue on its merits?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, why don't you go file your request for an arrest with Israel and see what they have to say about it? Oh, maybe because you know they would tell you to get bent. It doesn't comport with any system of justice.
Also, why did the DOJ wait 6 whole years, well beyond the statute of limitation, to indict me? And why did the DOJ choose to unseal the indictment on November 1st, 2022, the very same week of the midterm elections? Could this have anything to do with the fact or the fear that once Republicans gain control over Congress and begin to investigate, their cover-up would be in full display?
To shut them up before the
biggest question of
midterms.
all, why am I being indicted for FARA, for ghostwriting an innocuous article for which I received no payment, let alone from a foreign government, when the mother of all FARA cases, the Biden systemic influence peddling on behalf of foreign governments for which they raked millions, goes unpunished? This is, in a nutshell, why I decided to act the way I did. Because I do not have faith that I would receive a fair trial in a New York court.
You would not.
Let me tell you why. CFC Secretary General Dr. Patrick Ho, who paid Hunter Biden $1 million for God knows what.
That's the conviction guilty form that we looked at the start of this segment.
Was not allowed to mention the word Biden before the jury when he was tried in New York in 2018. The very same prosecutor who is now after me, Daniel Reichenthal, told the judge at the time that mentioning the name Biden would, quote, add a political dimension to the case.
Illegal.
And the judge agreed.
Can't
Which
talk
means that if
about it.
I'm ever brought before a U.S. court, I would not be allowed to utter the word Brussels
Yep.
or Biden. And the real context of my arrest, me being patient zero of the Biden family investigation, would be hidden from the jury. Let it sink in. I, who volunteered to inform the U.S. government about potential security breach and about compromising information about a man vying to be the next president, am now being hunted by the very same people whom I informed and may have to live on the run for the rest of my life.
By our own government to protect the Bidens.
I warned the government about potential risk to the integrity of the 2020 elections. If convicted by a U.S. court, would never be able to vote again in the U.S. elections. Just think about it and ask yourself, who's the real criminal in this story? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Gal Luft,
So that
who is out there speaking out. Prayers for this man, my friends. He is blowing a whistle on one of the most corrupt criminal operations maybe in the history of the world. I mean, they have seized control of the United States of America, and they are using the strong arm of the DOJ to prosecute people like this, who reach out in good faith, who decided to call the government in 2019 and say, hey, let's have a meeting here. I have some really troubling stuff to share with you about somebody who's got a real shot at the presidency. The crime family that was maybe in bed with the rest of the intelligence agencies. I mean, who knows how deep this goes or why they're all doing this. But they, instead of listening to him and prosecuting this like they would any regular criminal investigation, they turn the tables on him. They say, oh, you provided us false information. Oh, well, what are these transactions with this guy? What are those all about? And then they start to prosecute him because he knows too much. Now he's on the run. It is a shocking thing to think about this, you know, as somebody who cherishes justice and who wants so much better for our DOJ and our FBI, for them to be weaponizing their agencies to go after those who are exposing the real criminality in this country is just one of the most, it's a skin-crawling, disgusting thing that's happening. And this guy is, like you said, on the run. So incredible bravery, incredible strength. We're going to be sending love, energy, and strength to Dr. Gal Luft, wherever he is. Hopefully he is residing safely and soundly. Thank you, sir, for sharing this message and opening up this Pandora's box with all of these names in here, because there were a lot of them. And just a couple that we wrote down. The one-eyed Hunter associate, the guy who was informing the Bidens. Well, I think we know that many people suspect that to be Louis Frey. Now, I don't think he's officially been identified yet, but he is the former FBI official who was on the transaction. He gave $100,000 to the Biden Charitable Trust for some stupid reason. They did a bunch of business together, so we know he's been named. We'll see if Congress goes after him. This was all taking place out of the Southern District of New York. We had this guy, Richard Donahue, apparently was suspended, or maybe was the acting AG, who was the person who called the lid on all of these investigations. He identified Joshua Wilson from the Baltimore field office, the same guy who met at Brussels and then also picked up the Hunter Biden laptop. Tons of questions for that guy. 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York, Catherine Ghosh, Daniel Rackenthal, and then we heard, of course, about Rob Walker, the bag man for Hunter Biden. And so Pandora's Box is being open. Major shout outs to Dr. Gal Luft for exposing more of the Biden crime family. And of course, we're going to continue to cover this. I'm sure there will be much more to come as Congress continues their work, and we'll continue to follow along here. Thank you for subscribing, my friends.